All right. Hi, Jenna. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And so let's go ahead and get started. I've known you for a while. We met in, let's see, what was it? 2008, I think. Is that right?
I think so, yeah, 2000s. Yeah, I think it was the second half of my first year at Michigan State, or it was the second year. So yeah, it would have been like 2007, 2008, around that
Okay.
time. I think, yeah.
That sounds that sounds right. Yeah. Um, okay. So, and like, I know you grew up in St. Joseph, Michigan. And tell me about yourself as a kid. Like, how would you have described yourself when you were younger?
Well, okay, so I have a small technicality. I grew up mostly in a, middle of nowhere place called Grand Junction, Michigan, which is near like Bangor, South Haven, which is like a little further east than St. Joe. Eventually, I did end up living in St. Joe when my family moved when I was a freshman in high school, but you know, neither here nor there really, but just a small technicality. But as a kid, so yeah, I we always lived kind of in the middle of nowhere, like rural Michigan. And as a kid, I was very shy and very quiet. I had two older half siblings, an older brother and an older sister, and I also had a twin brother. So a lot going on with my in my household, even though my older siblings are quite a bit older. I think my sister is like 7 years older, and then my older brother is like 5 or 6 years older. So they had a different dad than my twin and I. So there's like a little bit of an age difference there, but my other siblings all seemed much more like extroverted and like just like hyperactive and like just doing stuff all the time. And I was just kind of like more reserved and quiet and introverted and like I just like my mom told me like there would just be times when like they would just all be like roughhousing or doing something crazy, loud or whatever, and I'd just be like somewhere else just like sitting and looking at them being like, why are you guys doing this? Like what? I don't know, I don't get it. Like I'd just be like, I just did my own thing. I was a much, like I said, much quieter, much shyer, more reserved, like more imaginative. Like I just remember like I would go off and have my own play by myself. And then like obviously my twin brother and I, we spent like a lot of time together and we would play, but like, he's a boy and they're very different developmentally. So yeah, that's how I would describe. Just very like kind of spacey, kind of introverted, quiet, dreamy, whatever. Like I remember one of the feedback I my parents got when I was in like first kindergarten, first grade. I was just like I was like a wanderer. Like I would just like all kids would be off doing something, and I would just like be like wandering around, just like doing my own thing. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I remember that specific feedback of just like, oh, she's getting into first, second grade, and she has to like stay in her seat and like whatever. She can't just like be like wandering around and like.
Do you feel like you still have that urge now?
Yes, I do. I like it's hard for me to like sit at my desk and do like my job, which is a very like focused thing. Like I find myself like getting up and like moving around a lot, which
Yeah.
probably I am like not as efficient as my manager would like me to be, but
Yeah. So, it's kind of a good seg. I guess I'm the oldest, right? And I've always been curious about people who have older siblings. Like, do you feel like your older siblings influenced you a lot as far as like your tastes in music or art, or just, I guess, anything in general?
honestly, no. because
Interesting.
because I wish that they had. Like I wish I had like a cool, and this is gonna sound like I'm bagging on them a little bit, but it's like, they're kind of normies. So it's just how it is. Like they were never really into like music as much as me. Like I had to figure that out on my own. So it's like I feel like we had like similar taste in like comedy and like things that we thought were funny, but like my biggest, thing for me was like music. That was like my big passion. And like that was not something that I like. My sister couldn't care less about music, and then like my older brother kind of didn't really start getting into music until I was like older and like had my own tastes and was like really into like what I was listening to. And then he kind of also, because of um, how into it I was, like we started hanging out, and his friends were also kind of into the same thing too. So it's like that's how we bonded. And then he like kind of was just like, oh, like I've never really thought about music as a subculture or like a lifestyle. And that's always just so crazy to me that like there are people who just like don't care about music and like don't have an opinion or just like, yeah, I just turn on the radio and just listen to whatever. And I'm just like, I'm like, I want to study you. I'm like, this is very like such a foreign thing to me. Like my friends and I, who are like all in like the music scene here, we talk about them. He's like, yeah, like there are people who think it's like we're like really nerdy and we're like really like it's a very geeky thing. And I'm just like, it's just like such a different mindset. But like, yeah, no, I mean, long answer short, no, I didn't really have a lot of influence. I mean, like we watched a lot of the same stuff growing up just because, we're all in the same house. So it's like a lot of like Labyrinth was a huge movie that we watched a lot. The Dark Crystal, which scared the shit out of me as a kid. Um, the Three Amigos with Chevy Chase and Martin Short and Steve Martin. That was another big one. But like, yeah, this was like mostly like movies or like stuff like that. But like, they were so much older that like by the time we were kind of getting to the point where we were coming of age, my brother and I, like they were kind of like already moved out of the house. And so like we kind of were able to kind of form our own like identities at that point a little more. And I'd say it's probably shaped more by the fact that we had gotten cable at that point too.
Awesome. Yeah, what was your media diet like when you were younger, especially like having cable? Because like the only way that I really like found out about, like Liz Phair or Hole or Nirvana or anything that I got into when I was, 12, 13 years old was by reading like Spin or Rolling Stone or watching MTV. So like how did you like find in the 90s, the Flintstones 90s, how did you find out about the things that you became interested in when you were a kid with no internet?
Oh, well, I would say, yeah, definitely magazines. Um, I think when I started getting into music, my dad would always have, he got us like a Rolling Stone subscription and like a Spin magazine subscription. Um, and then also like before the cable times, like we would just watch, we had the four channels like Fox 17, NBC, ABC, NBC like was channel 8, ABC channel 3, CBS was like channel I can't remember, but like, we watched just a lot of like network TV. And that's how like, okay, so another thing that really bonded us as siblings was like we were close enough to the border of like Indiana and Illinois that like we would get the Chicago TV stations and like the Michigan TV stations. And like, Chicago's like always like an hour behind us. And so like in the summer especially, like I would have the block of TV like memorized from like 11 in the morning until like 9 or whatever at night. And like we would religiously, okay, so since we had like these two different like Chicago and Michigan, like we'd be able to watch like 4 episodes of The Simpsons a night. So like we would always so I think we watched more like syndicated episodes of The Simpsons than like actual new ones. Like we watched the new ones when they were on Sunday nights too. Um, but like yeah, The Simpsons was a huge touchstone for all of our siblings and like a huge culturally like insane impact on all of us. And I think on all of our senses of humor too. So yeah, I watched a lot and like, like the Wonder Years was also in that block with The Simpsons. So yeah, a lot of like syndicated TV, network TV. I think Doogie Howser was in there as well. Cheers, I think we watch sometimes too. So yeah, so like media diet, like pre-cable, obviously like a lot of network TV, a lot of Simpsons. Um, and then and like yeah, magazines. I did like always like to read a lot of magazines. I read a lot too, like books. Like that was always very encouraged. And like I'm sure your school had like the Book It program where if you read like 100 books, you got like a free Pizza Hut, personal pan pizza. And so I read a lot. And so yeah, I always liked magazines and books. But then yeah, got cable and then like that completely, blew my mind with having like I just remember watching a ton of Comedy Central. We watched a ton of like stand up. That's another thing too. My parents also really liked stand up, and we watched a lot of like stand up specials, and we would go to see stand up sometimes too. Like I remember when my mom was at not Michigan State, Western. We went to see The Amazing Jonathan. um, that was amazing. Of
I hope
course.
so.
Um, and then we also went to a lot of like plays and stuff because she, had a discounted rate at the Miller Auditorium here. That's part of like Western. And so like we went to see like Blue Man Group, we went to see Tommy, by the Who, that play. Um, yeah, so like a lot I mean like for how like rural we were and how kind of like not rich. Like there was a lot of like cultural, influences and like we were exposed to a lot of different types of culture. But then like cable specifically, I think is where, yeah, so getting into Comedy Central, learning about like we always watch Saturday Night Live too. That was a big one. And then like watching like the reruns on Comedy Central and then like learning about Kids in the Hall. I loved watching Kids in the Hall on Comedy Central. Loved watching all the like stand-up specials. Um, and then of course MTV, getting to see like music videos was insane. Like that would always be on like in the mornings when we were getting ready to go to school, would like MTV would be on and like just watching music videos on in the background. And yeah, once I started kind of coming into my own, like getting into music, uh yeah, having those subscriptions to like, oh, and Alternative Press too. That was another magazine strip. That was like kind of just for me. Like I think my dad liked to read Rolling Stone because it had like other stuff besides just music in it. And then like Spin and Alternative Press, I think he got that were just kind of like for me. So those were like the big influences, I would say.
Awesome. Yeah, spin was like my Bible in high school.
Mhm.
I loved it. I miss it.
Remember Circus magazine too?
Oh God, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that would be like, oh, we're going to some city. Like I met a friend at Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp who lived in Royal Oak, which is like so funny that you
Oh
and I
yeah.
never crossed paths because I would spend my summers there if like for a few years. And I just
Like,
remember like, oh, anytime we went to a city, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go to Barnes and Noble and get like a circus magazine or
yeah, I know, right? Or like what's like Blender? Yeah, I don't know. There's like a
Yeah, that was another. I didn't have a ton of those, but yeah, that would be another one too. Like the browsing the Barnes and Noble music
Mhm.
section,
The
just feeling
culture.
so cosmopolitan.
Yeah, exactly. Who was your first favorite band?
Uh, so I want to say Green Day, but if I'm being honest, my first favorite band was Prodigy.
Really?
Yes.
I wouldn't have guessed that. Wow.
I know, it was very weird, but I really liked that album, Fat of the Land.
Uh-huh. I
Yeah, and
remember.
like yeah, I don't know why they were like my first favorite, but then like obviously when I got into Green Day, they were like yeah, they had a huge impact on me and they were like my favorite band until I was like 18. So like yeah, from like 12 to 18 it was like all about Green Day and then of course they were like my gateway drug into all manner of punk rock and like learning about the history of punk rock and of course like the big 90s punk rock revival like the Southern California like Offspring and Bad Religion and yeah, all that stuff. So first favorite was Prodigy, but that's just a technicality. Like my true, like real favorite band as a, a teen was definitely Green Day. They had a huge, huge oversized influence on me. And um, yeah.
I do want to get back to Green Day, but like when you were a kid, did your parents ever play like the Beatles or the Beach Boys for you or anything like that?
Yeah, my mom was a huge Beatles fan. And actually, I
Hmm.
remember when we were a kid, we had a lot of VHS too growing
Hmm.
up. Um, that's another thing too, huge VHS explosion of like the 80s and 90s were like um so I remember there was a VHS that she would put on sometimes that was like all Beatles music that was like set to like cartoons. Yeah. So we would watch that a lot. I remember watching that a lot. And like they had a bunch of like vinyl records too. And yeah, definitely had a lot of Beatles in that. Yeah, my mom was a huge Beatles fan.
Gotcha. So how, like, do you remember what, like, how you got into Green Day or like what, like, drew you into them? Like, because for me, I know with Hole, I'm gonna be honest, it was the look. It was just seeing
Really?
her makeup and her hair and her dress. I was like, I gotta have that in my life. So if it's the look, I won't judge you. But how do you think you like, what like sucked you in, if you can remember? Like, what was the hook?
No, it wasn't the look. I would say I came to them in a very weird way because it's like in 94 when Dookie like hit and was massive, I was like 9. So I think I was still a little young and like not super aware of them at that time and like how huge they were and like still wasn't in my like oh music is my thing phase yet. And so it was just kind of like, stuff that was going on in the background. Um, but I remember when the song Good Riddance came
Mhm.
out. I don't know, I was just like something about that song like really I really liked it. Like I would hear it on the radio and I was like I got like Nimrod was the first Green Day album that I owned because I really liked that song and I just like really loved everything else that was on that album. And that's what got me into like, oh, like there's something here, like something about this is like speaking to me. Something about like they're very self-deprecating. And like I've always been like an anxious kid and like, growing up on like the Simpsons and just like the cynical slacker nature of the 90s, like that is the Gen X, that is the world we came of age in. It was like the Gen X slacker, cynical, like self-deprecating, you don't take anything too seriously, like don't be a sellout. Um, like being proud of yourself isn't cool or whatever. like, Um, and then like I said, like watching a lot of Comedy Central stand up, also very self-deprecating, right? Um, I don't know, that just sort of like spoke to me as someone who has always been super anxious and felt out of place, like feeling like, my family dynamics feeling like, oh, I don't really like fit in with these people. I'm like kind of in my head all the time. Um, and to like hear that reflected back of just like, yeah, there are other people who feel this way too, like people who feel weird or like they don't quite fit in. Like there's just something like you've always just felt a little different. Um, so that really spoke to me, I guess, and was what drew me in. And it's like it's so weird to realize that like so much of my life is shaped by like anxiety. like as a younger person, like yeah, to me it was just like, oh, this is something I've had to deal with as an adult, but it's like, oh no, it's always been with me. It was just, called different things, I guess, or I just didn't see it as that. But like that's what it is. And just like expressing that anxiety of just like and that's why I really like Insomniac is like my favorite Green Day album because that is a very dark album. it was I love Dookie, I love all their stuff. But like Insomniac really spoke to me because, like I was an awkward teen, and I finally found this thing that like spoke to me, and it was all very dark and just being like feeling out of place and feeling just weird and out of step. And he wrote that when I think Billy Joe, I'm talking about. He wrote that when he was like deep in like struggling with like his addiction and like the fame of like how huge they had gotten. They were like touring all the time and like they had just had their first kid. And so it was just like these very dark themes. Oh, and then like, they were, like kind of processing the trauma of like basically being exiled from like their scene that they came up in Berkeley and like being banned from like Gilman and stuff because they got, like, oh, you sold out, you signed to a major label, you're not welcome here anymore, and like dealing with like all of that. So it's like a lot of songs are about like, there's like Brain Stew, which is just like, I can't fucking sleep because I have a kid now, but I'm also like a rock star. And he was like doing math and stuff at the time. That's what Geek Stink Breath is about, like doing math. And then like a bunch of songs about feeling like, oh, I've just been told by the people who, were totally supportive and like a scene I came up in and like where I thought I'd always be welcome. Like I'm no longer welcome there, and like everyone thinks I'm like the worst person in the world. And so I don't know. Yeah. So just hearing the themes of feeling like an outsider, feeling like you're different, feeling like you're just kind of like out of step and like can't quite connect with the world around you for whatever reason. And then of course, you know, a Green Day did eventually get very political, but like, learning about the other political, roots of punk that aligned a lot with, like how I was raised and like how I felt about the world. And
I watched your podcast interview with Katie,
oh, you
and
did.
yeah, like a few weeks ago. And I remember you talking about how you wanted to play the saxophone because of Lisa Simpson.
Mhm.
But they told me, to my memory, correct me if I'm wrong, you said the reason you couldn't play because your hands were too small.
Yeah, that's what they told me. That's right. They were like, your hands are too small. You can't play the saxophone.
Your hands must be bigger than Lisa Simpson's, right?
You would think. But okay, so here's something I learned recently that made me just feel like I'm a huge fraud of saying that, like, oh, I'm a huge Simpsons fan. I know all the Simpsons, trivia, whatever. And let me ask you this question. What type of saxophone does Lisa Simpson play?
Holy
Do you
crap. Man, because Homer got asked that at King Toots and he didn't know either. Tenor? Am I
know?
right? No, I'm wrong. Shit. No, what is it?
Well, okay, so I always thought she played the alto sax.
Uh-huh.
And that is like when I was, auditioning for band, like that is what I wanted to play, just like alto sax. And because that's what I thought Lisa played. No, she plays the baritone saxophone.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And
So what?
this was very recently brought to my attention. And again, I was just like, my life is a lie. How could I have gone this long being a huge Simpsons fan and not knowing the right saxophone that she plays? And also, like, yeah, even if I had played the alto saxophone, I still wouldn't have been like Lisa Simpson. But but yes, that's what they told me. And I wonder, I'm like, did they think I wanted to play the baritone saxophone? Because I guess that's why Matt Groening had her play the baritone saxophone because it is such a huge instrument and she's such a small girl. He's like, I just thought it looked funny that like such a small girl is playing such a huge instrument. So that's why she plays the baritone saxophone. But
Hmm.
anyway,
Interesting.
yes, that is what the person who was deciding, like the fitter, the instrument fitter or something, they were just like, your hands are too small, you can't play the saxophone. So
So you play clarinet instead.
yes, yeah, that's
And
what they recommended. And as you saw in the video, my sister had tried to play the clarinet and was not successful. And so we just still had her clarinet lying around. So that is how that happened, which of course, my parents always, whatever the cheaper option was, whatever thing they didn't have to pay any money for, that's like what was going to happen. So
how old were you when you learned?
So this would have been fifth grade, so like 10, like we were talking earlier, like 9, 10 or whatever. Yeah, that was the first year when you decided if you wanted to do like band or choir or something. Fifth grade.
Okay. And like how did you progress with clarinet? Like because in high school we had like concert band and symphony band, and symphony band was like a little bit more advanced than concert band. Like did you have any, apparatuses like that?
No, not really. I mean, I always, like I said, grew up in the middle of nowhere. Um, in both school systems was very small communities. Um, so it was pretty much just, concert band in the winter, like second semester, and then like when you got, well, okay, so it was pretty much all concert band from like fifth grade through like middle school through like eighth grade. And then once you got into high school, that was when, in the fall, it's like you do marching band. And so, yeah, it was like marching band in the fall, and then the winter semester was the concert band. And then you do like the concerts, and then you do festival too, which where you would go and like learn three pieces of music and go and play them at wherever like the designated festival site was. And you would like, you don't compete with other schools, but like every school you get like graded on your performance. Um, so yeah, that was true in both school systems, was just like, and you did festival in middle school too, I think. Like, I think maybe starting in like later middle school, like seventh or eighth grade, you start doing festival. And then you could also do like solo and ensemble too, which is where you could like, you would either learn a solo piece with like an accompaniment, or you could do like a duet with another person or a trio. One time I did a quartet. Um, and that was the kind of another thing you learned it, and then you would go and play it for like a judge, and they would, rate you and like give you feedback and stuff. And so like, yeah, I did all of it. I was in marching band, I did the, festival with the whole band, and then I also participated in like the solo ensemble too. And before I transferred schools, both very small, like rural school systems, but at least the first school I went to had a little bit better funding, I think, or at least just a better, I don't know, the band teacher just had more resources or something. And I was able to get a scholarship for like 3 years in a row to go to Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp in the summer. And so I did that too. So I was in it.
Yeah. Did you ever get like did you audition for like a chair? Because we had like first chair, second chair,
Oh
blah
yeah.
blah.
Yeah. And like I was not good at first. Like I was pretty close to quitting because I just I'm not getting this, not understanding. But then all of a sudden, like one day it just clicked for me, and I was just like, oh, this is how you read music. This is how this translates to the instrument. And then it just like after that, I was just like took off. And so like I remember the first like my second or third year or whatever, I got like most improved. Was like, cause like they would get like you would do like band awards at like the end of the year. And like I was like most improved. And then by like 2 years after that, like seventh or eighth grade, I got like most valuable player. I was like basically like you are the best person in band. And I was
Wow.
yeah, I went from like being like last chair to like I was always first chair. Like I was always first chair. And like people would challenge me, like, oh, I want to try to be first chair, but I don't think anyone ever, I think maybe one time someone beat me and I was second chair for a brief time, but like, yeah, I was usually section leader the whole time for
Nice.
most of my tenure in both schools. Yeah. So, oh, I did jazz band for a little bit too in my first
Hmm.
school. My band teacher was very, like I said, very supportive, like lobbied, like got me that scholarship to go to Blue Lake. And she was like, since it was such a small school system, we didn't always have enough kids or like enough instruments. Like I remember like for one year for festival, there was a song that called for like an oboe, but like we didn't have an oboe player. And she's just like, Jenna, you're just gonna learn to play oboe for this song. And I was just like, okay. So like she had
Wow.
me learn to play oboe for one song for festival. And then she was just like, oh, we're gonna be starting a jazz band. She's like, I want you to play trumpet in jazz band. And I was like, okay, cool. And so like I learned to play trumpet. And then she was teaching me how to play drums too in jazz band. But then that was like right when I was moving. So it's like I had the very beginning of learning to play the drums and it was snatched away from me, which I'm so sad about because I would fucking love to be able to play drums now. That's actually kind of something I'm thinking about learning, like add it to the fucking never ending list of like other hobbies I want to take up. But like, yeah, I want to learn how to play another instrument, even though it's like, I'm still like not even really that good at guitar. So it's like, hey, why don't you try to like actually learn to play the guitar better first before you learn something else? But uh, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that was a lot of my, that was like the extent of my band career. Very, was like, I was in it. And if I had had that support of that first school, like the whole time, my high school, I think that might have made like, that would have like, I think things would have turned out differently. I think I like probably would have gone on to like study music in college. Um, who knows? But yeah, it was a huge part of my life.
Yeah. It sounds like it. I mean, for sure. When did you learn to play guitar?
I think I was about 15. Uh, I think probably between the ages of 12 and 15. 'Cause I think 12 is when I really got into Green Day, started getting into punk, really started identifying with that. And like, I had always liked singing too. So that was another thing. Like, if I hadn't done band, like, because like I said, it was a small school, so it's like you couldn't do both. So it's like you could either do band or you could do choir. And I was like, well, I want to do band. But I always really liked singing, and I was always told I was a good singer, um, which I got from my mom. Like my mom was a folk singer in and around Kalamazoo and like kind of yeah, like so she was also like a performer, like singer. Um, but yeah, I was focused more on band. But sorry, what was the question? I just completely lost my train of thought.
Oh, it's okay. When did you learn to play guitar?
Oh, play guitar, right. So yeah, I think yeah, I knew I had like a musical aptitude and then like finally learning like oh this is what like learning like finding punk and like Green Day and like being like oh well this is me like this is actually what like music in general like I love and have an affinity for but like this is actually like what I want, this is who I am. And so yeah, I wanted to learn electric guitar, I wanted to like play Green Day songs basically. So I think yeah I was probably around somewhere between 12 and 15. I got my first guitar, which from the podcast video was from a kid. I bought from a kid who rode my bus, who like had a ton of guitars, and he sold it to me for like $50. And it was just a Harmony Strat knockoff. And my brother, my older brother at the time was living in Kalamazoo, which was like about an hour away. And at that time, Proco, the pedal company, was still in Kalamazoo. That's also another reason why Kalamazoo has such a music centric scenes because like Gibson guitars, like the factory used to be here. Proco guitar pedals used to be here. So it's like the Kalamazoo like mandolin company was here. So there's like a lot of like history of like music in Kalamazoo. But at that time, so yeah, Proco was still in Kalamazoo and my brother worked there. And so it's like I got this my electric guitar and I bought like this tiny little like practice amp. Um but I still couldn't figure out, I'm like, why doesn't this sound like how I want it to sound? And then my brother got me um, the Proco Rat distortion pedal.
Mm.
And that really like took me over the edge. Just like, oh, okay, now I get it. This is what this is why the guitars sound like they do because of like this distortion pedal. So um yeah, so between 12 and 15 and like I took lessons for a little while too, but um I took piano lessons briefly too, but again, didn't stay. I wanted to, you know, keep doing them, but my dad pulled me out because he had some weird dispute with the owners about like we were going to be going on vacation or something and they wouldn't like refund money or like whatever. And he was just like, well, this year's not going to go here anymore. And I was like, oh, that might be a bit of an overreaction, but okay, like I still want to learn to play piano, but that's cool, I guess. But like yeah, then I took guitar lessons and that was like local, so it wasn't as big of a deal. But eventually like once he's just like, well, what do you want to learn to play? And I'm like, I want to play Green Day songs. And he's like, well, those are all power chords. And he showed me what power chords were, and I was just like, oh, well, we're done here. I don't need to learn. I don't need to learn anything else. I can figure out I can figure out Green Day songs just from this. So I like stopped going because I was like, this is fine. I don't need anything else.
So like so you took a few lessons and then otherwise it sounds like you're pretty self-taught, you know. Like have you
Yeah, I mean, I guess I learned my band instructor always told me I had a really good ear, and so like I can hear something and be able to figure it out on power chords. I mean, like it's all the notes are all the same. It's just like the different chord configurations just have kind of a different um like tone and like kind of like I don't know, it's hard to explain because again, I don't know the technical terms, but like the power chords that I play are very simple, but like they're still like it's like the root note and then you have like the fifth of the note. And so like those are the ones I play. Like very simple. It's just like two strings, right? But then you have like the bar chords and like that you can just like move that are like the same configuration, but like you just go like up and down and then like the notes change, but like your fingering stays the same. Those are like kind of the more complicated versions of like what I play mostly. But yeah, it's all, if you can look up the tabs and just like, oh, it's E. Okay, let me go find the E fret, and then it's like I'll just play the power fifth version of this chord, which is like, but then you also have like the open chords, which I know all the open chords because like my dad got me like a guitar book, and like that's all like to that, and that's again, it's like, yeah, this is a G open chord, but I can also just play a G power chord that's literally just two strings and two frets instead of like, the yeah, the slightly more complicated like fingering. And that's just like, I don't know, that's why I liked punk. It was like simple, it was fast, it was loud. And I'm like, yeah, this is all I need. This is what I don't need. I was never like into wanky solos or like, prog stuff. Like I just love that punk was so immediate and so raw. And I don't know, that's just like spoke to me. And so I just like never really went beyond that. Like once I figured out what that was, I'm like, this is all I need. I don't need to be any more complicated than this. This is exactly what I want to accomplish. This is what I want to achieve. This is my objective.
done and done. So, okay, now I know the story already, but for our listening fans, of which there are millions, can you please share the story of how you founded your band Sierra Mift?
Yeah, sure. So, uh, this came about, it was would have been the fall of 2022, I believe. Um, so I had just gone through a huge, so like my partner at the time and we had just bought a house, taken this like huge milestone. And I had started a new job. And it's like we were still like in the pandemic, but kind of coming out of it, the vaccine had, rolled out. And but I was still working remotely. But like people were still, people were starting to like start gathering again slowly, and like people were like coming out of the pandemic. And um I got this new job and I was making a little bit more money. And I think, the pandemic wasn't as traumatic for me as it was for a lot of people because I finally felt like sweet, I have time to like do all these things that I want to do. And kind of one of those things was I wanted to like get back into playing guitar again because I hadn't really done it for a long time. And I bought a new guitar like in the pandemic. That was like one of the things I bought with like my stimulus money. It was this shell pink Fender Strat, the like what was it called? It's the the Fender Player series. Um, and it's beautiful guitar. And so like I had started like roller skating and just like, just getting back into hobbies and just like, I was working remotely. And so I just had this like new sense of freedom. And I think everyone did like during the pandemic of just like realizing how fast things can change and how like, it was a crazy traumatic experience, but I think it also like made people realize of just like, oh, like, I should start taking my life more seriously or like doing things that like I didn't think I had time to do or like just kind of like I think like it refocused a lot of things. Um, at least for me anyway. And so like I found myself, I'm like, okay, I'm finally doing the thing I've always wanted to do, which is like work remotely, right? Work from home. Um, and I wanted to get back into like doing my hobbies and like playing guitar. And so as I spoke about earlier, like anxiety has kind of been this like thing that's been with me my whole life. And it's just kind of, anyone who has anxiety tell you like it just it's like this thing that's always with you. It like colors your whole life. It's like this lens that you can't really shake like if it's not controlled or if it's like and it's like there are times when it's better and it's worse, but like I just felt like maybe as I was getting older it just like wasn't, I don't know, I just felt like it was keeping me from living the life I wanted to lead. Like I'm like I want to do all these things, but this like anxiety like keeps me from doing it, and I'm like I'm so sick of this. I don't want to like have this be my life and just like have this life of regret because I just let my anxiety keep me from doing what I want to do. So I started to finally look into like medication to deal with it, and I had been prescribed Wellbutrin because I had talked to, I think I'd also at this time I'd taken like an ADHD test. And they said, you don't have ADHD. I think like you just have anxiety. And it's like there are a lot of like shared symptoms of both. And they're like, so and I told them like, well, I guess I'm not opposed to trying medication, but I had already started like getting healthy and like working out uh journey a few years ago. That was like kind of the first big lifestyle change I had ever done. And I was like really proud of how far I came. And I was just like, I really don't want to take something that would like make me like gain weight, which a lot of, anxiety meds can do, SSRIs or whatever. And so they're like, well, let's start you on Wellbutrin because it kind of is used off label for anxiety because it's technically like a stimulant, but like it's not going to have the sexual side effects of a typical anxiety med, and you're not going to gain weight. And so I was like, perfect, let's try it. Um, and I was like kind of in the thick of it. I think this was like the fall of 2022, and I think I'd been taking it for like a month or so. And our friends were having a Halloween party. They like I think it was the first year since the pandemic that they were able to have their Halloween party. And so um, I was feeling anxiety still, like kind of wasn't looking forward to going, but I decided to go. Um, Me and my partner at the time. And um, this girl, Katie May, was also at the party. And she was someone who I kind of just knew tangentially through the scene because she was a very well-known and very talented musician in her own right. She had her own project, but she was also in my friend Jake's band. They like came together. They had both gone to a show that night and then came to the party afterwards. So they got there together. And so I was like talking to Jake, and then like she was there too. And I kind of knew of her, but never really talked to her before, never really like took the time to get to know her. But for whatever reason, we ended up talking at our friend's Halloween party, and she's just like, "Hey, how are you?" And I was like, I'm doing okay. I'm like, actually, I feel kind of weird. And she's like, why? And I'm like, well, I'm on this drug. I'm taking this drug Wellbutrin. And she's like, oh yeah, I've taken that one. It's weird. I'm like, yeah, I don't think I like it very much. And she's just like, well, why are you taking this drug? And I was like, well, I've always had this thing with anxiety, and I think it like keeps me from what I want to do. And I just like don't want to like I just kind of want to live my life how I want to live it and not like have this anxiety all the time. And she's like, well, what does it keep you from doing that you want to do? And I was like, well, for one thing, I'm like, I've always wanted to perform. Like I've always wanted to like have a band and like write songs and like stuff. And she's just like, well, let's start a punk band. And I was like, what? Really? She's like, yeah, let's just start a punk band. And I was just like, oh, okay. Well, I'm like, I'll have to think about that, but I'll get back to you or whatever. And then like, we started talking about other stuff, and like the party went on, and I went home, and uh I didn't really take it to heart because I'm just like, well, people at parties, they talk, they say things, and like, they don't really mean it. And then I remember we were out, like me and my partner at the time, and Jake and Jake's wife, we were like at dinner or something with someone else, and we got to talking. I was just like, hey, so like Katie at that party, like she like, said she wanted to like start a band with me. I'm like, that's like, she was just like saying that, right? And he's just like, yeah, no, like if she said that, like she doesn't just like say stuff like that. Like if she like said that, she like, I think she like means it. Like, so she's like, he's like, if you wanted, like you could follow up with her about that. Like, I think she's like, I don't think she would like joke about that. And I was just like, oh, okay. And so like more time passed because again, anxiety. And it got to be New Year's of 2022, and I was spending it in Chicago with my older brother and a bunch of his friends, and also my partner at the time. And we had great, it was a lot of fun. And then the next day we were having dim sum in Chinatown before we had to take the train back to Kalamazoo. And everyone's going around, they're just like, what's your New Year's resolution? And I was like, I'm gonna start a band this year. That's my New Year's resolution. And they're just like, okay. And so like, yeah, we got back to Kalamazoo and like still didn't reach out to Katie until so like that was like January 1, January 1st. I didn't reach out to her until like the end of January. It was like the week before the end of like the last week of January. I finally like got up the nerve to message her on Facebook and was like, hey, I don't know if this is still on the table, but like if you want to start a band, like I'm down. I want to do it. And she was just like, yeah, let's do it. When do you want to practice? He's like, I'm like, why don't we practice this Friday? And she's like, all right, cool. And so like that's how it started. And then like we had that practice that Friday, and it was like a horrible, snowy, like crazy night, of course. And so it's like I had every reason to bail. And I even thought about it. I'm like, oh, I don't know the weather, about and I'm just like, no, dude, no. Like this is what you have wanted forever. And I was terrified, of course. And the weather didn't help, but and I was so like scared, didn't know what to. I'm like, I'm just gonna go like make a fool of myself. She's gonna like laugh me out of her house, and this is gonna be like whatever. But that's not what happened. I showed up, and like we jammed a little bit. I didn't really know what I was doing, but somehow like a song came together, and yeah, that's how it started. And then we just kept having practice every week.
It just kind of naturally came together with like you on guitar and her on drums.
Well, actually, so at first, she and I were both guitar. So like she's like, I want this to be your project. So like you can like you'll be the songwriter and you'll be the singer. And she's like, and you can be like rhythm guitar. And she's like, and I'll be like, like lead guitar. because she was like, again, a very multi-talented musician. Like piano is like her main instrument, and that's what she plays in her project, but she can also play guitar, she plays drums, which eventually she became the drummer in our band because we played just us both on guitar for a while, but it got to the point where it's like, well, we both wanted it to be an all-female project, like all girl. Like that was like right off the bat, like we both had always wanted to be in like an all-girl punk band. And so we were like, well, we gotta find a bass player and a drummer. And Kalamazoo has a decent music scene for a small city, but it's still unfortunately like, you know, less women in the scene than men, unfortunately. And so it just got to the point where it's like, well, if we can find one or the other, then Katie can fill in like whatever we couldn't find. And it's hard to find a drummer, period, because drummers usually get snatched up pretty quick, and it's like even harder to find a female drummer. And so it was decided that like Katie would play drums, and then it'd be way easier for us to find like a bass player, a female bass player. So that is how that evolved from, yeah, we initially were both on guitar, but kind of had to pivot to the scene to like actually get the full formation. So
Yeah, and I almost feel like this is a stupid question, but like, why do you feel like the ethos of all female band is so important to you?
I don't know, because I've always like been a feminist and a girl's girl, like even from a young age, like I don't know. Like I said, I was pro-choice in like middle school. My mom is a feminist, and I think just her influence of like, yeah, women can do anything men can do, and it's fucking bullshit that women are treated the way they are in society, and it's bullshit that we've had to fight and strive for the same rights as men, and that's like not how it should be. Um, and I think just also from a purely just a music standpoint, I have a little bit of imposter syndrome, and like never really like one of the main things besides just the anxiety of like even trying something and like the fear of failure. Like I just never thought I was like that good of a musician. Especially like guitar. I'm just like, oh, I just play power chords, whatever, which is like that's all punk is. So it's again, it's like I feel like there's like, oh, everyone else can do it, but like not me. But I don't know, something about it was just like such a rarity, I guess. Like there were so few all women bands. And I listened to so many dude punk bands. And it's just important to me to have that shared experience of like being a woman, even though it's like I don't think any of our songs are necessarily like super, feminist or whatever, but I think just having like collaborating in something in this and like being like involved in a project like this where you are just so close quarters and just like such on a personal level. I just always wanted to collaborate with women, and I think it's like, I didn't want to feel like some dude was gonna make me feel like shit because all I can play are power chords or like I don't know. It was just always something I wanted to do. Like I've just always been a girl's girl. Like I said, always been a feminist. Always wanted that to be like whatever project I was doing. That was like my project.
Yeah. So what's your songwriting process like?
Um, well, I would say I start a lot of things and I don't end them. I have a lot of like half finished songs. So, uh, that's part of it. Me just like getting out some little fragment and then just like coming back to it later, but also thinking of new ones before finishing what I'm starting. Um, and also it's just like uh I find that if I try to sit down and write, it doesn't work. And I read an interview recently with so there's this punk band called Radioactivity, and they're actually a Texas punk band. They're really cool. You should check them out actually. They just played up here in Grand Rapids and they were amazing. But Jeff Burke, the main songwriter for Radioactivity, it's a similar process. He's just like, yeah, I can't sit down to consciously write. He's like, songs come to me when I'm like watching TV or when I'm doing something else. And that's the same for me. Like when I'm showering, when I'm just like doing something mindless. And I think like, my conscious mind can be occupied with some task. I think for whatever reason, that tricks my anxiety or it like makes, I don't know, it's just like my subconscious is able to come up and like I'm just able to like come up with a turn of phrase or something. Like that's just usually how it is. Like I'll be in the shower, I'll be cooking, I'll be like just at work doing some boring, mindless task, and then just like it just comes to me from the back of my mind. And it's yeah, that's mainly how things come to me.
Do you usually write the music or the lyrics first, or does it not really like go that way?
I was writing like when I first started, it was like I would come up with like the chord progressions first and then like figure out like what kind of song it would be and then the lyrics would come. But I've kind of like switched now and I think maybe I need to switch back. Maybe that's why I'm like not finishing my songs because now it's like I come up with the lyrics much more readily and then try to come up with a chord progression with the lyrics. And I think maybe I need to go back to how it was before, but I don't know, lyrics are just coming much more easily and it's just like, well, I'll just jot this down and then like I'll figure out the melody later. But yeah, so I've done both and now it seems like I'm kind of switched from what I started with, but maybe I need to switch back. Maybe that's why I'm not finishing anything.
Do you when you write lyrics, do you try to like put a lot of like thought or emotion into it, or is it more about like kind of following the beat and cadence of the song?
So since I feel like I'm not a very skilled guitar player and that like the guitar is just kind of like an accompaniment, I try to make up for that with having more meaningful, like clever lyrics. So yeah, that's kind of like what my aim is of just like, yeah, I'm not a great guitar player, but I am good with words and I can write like a funny lyric or a clever lyric or um say something profound, um, or just something that's true to me, but in a way that's, you know, interesting. So that like, yeah, I'm not like a technical, like noodly guitar player. Like that's not what the focus is. I try to keep the focus of my lyrics since I am kind of like more of a simple kind of power chord based guitar player. So
So I've never been to a Sierra Miffed live show. What's that experience like?
well, playing live, well, I gotta say, I much prefer, I love going to shows, don't get me wrong. And like going to concerts is still one of my favorite pastimes. It was something I loved to do as a teenager, any chance, any opportunity I could. But I gotta say, I really like being on the other side. I really like being on stage, more than the crowd. It's pretty cool. Um, it can be a little it was like really nerve-wracking at first because it's like you're really nervous. And you like for me, it's like I don't think I had stage fright because it's like I've never just like frozen or whatever. It's like we've always like made it through every set, like we've never had to like stop and like restart a song or anything like that. Like knock on wood. Like I think we're past that phase. Um, but you still get a little bit of nervous energy. Like I said, it's a little less these days since we've been at it for well almost 2 years now. So, uh, but it feels great. It's amazing to like get on stage and like play your songs and like see people like connecting with it, like bobbing their heads or like just like really enjoying what you're doing. And like moshing, like that's great to see people just like really getting into what you're doing. And I love it. I love singing, I love playing guitar, I love playing our songs for people. It's amazing. It's like I said, it's like what I've always wanted to do. It's just like this dream, it's a literal like dream come true for me. And my only regret is that I didn't start doing it sooner. Um, so
I'm glad you're doing it now.
yeah, me too. It's like
Um,
really just opened up so many doors, and like I've just met so many cool people, and like people that I've been friends with my friend Jake Simmons, and he's been like a huge fixture in the scene for a long time. So it's like I've gone to many of his shows and I've met a lot of people through him, but it's very different when you're the one that's playing and like talking to other musicians and like being the one that's, like now you're in the know, like now you're you know, the person. Like you get to, it's like this shared world that like not everyone, can talk about or not everyone knows about. And I don't know, I have to remind myself that it's just like, yeah, I know it's you and it's you doing it, but it's like this is something that like not everyone can do and like not everyone would do. So I don't know. I have to remind myself that it's just like this is a cool thing. It's like, yes, I know it's you and you think everything you do is dumb and stupid and like you're not good at anything, but it's just like you are doing something that like a lot of people could never and would never be able to do for any number of reasons. So I
yeah.
have to keep reminding myself that it's like you are very lucky, and also it's like you do also have something that other people admire and like seem to like we keep getting booked on these shows, and like everyone seems to like what we do, and it's great to hear from people after the show who come up to you and are just like, oh my God, that was so cool, and like they want to buy like our merch, and I'm just like, I can't believe it. Like I said, we were talking earlier, I'm just like, I feel like I'm running some scam. Like I'm getting away with something. Like I can't believe that, someone actually like, or like when people, well, we have our demo on Bandcamp and it's like donation only because it's just a demo. It's not like our official release. And just when anyone pays any kind of money, like gives us any money for it, I'm just like, wow. Like it's still like it feels crazy that like we get any kind of I get any kind of money to do what I do. Um, so yeah, it's a great feeling.
What would you say has been the biggest band accomplishment to date?
Ooh, well, I would say we got to open for Mustard Plug at Bell's back in March. Bell's is like the best room in town. It's like the best sound. Bell's is a huge craft brewery that like is a huge draw to Kalamazoo, and like it's known like nationally as like a very prestigious craft beer brewery, and like they bring in great these big artists, and yeah, getting asked to open for Mustard Plug, who is like again like Grand Rapids based huge ska punk band. They're still like they were like had their heyday in like the 90s, but they still draw very well. They still tour. They are still like very well regarded and well respected in like the punk community, and to like be asked to open for them was huge. And that was like by far our like biggest show. I think there was like 400 people at that show. And we got a lot of great feedback from that. And yeah, that was really awesome. And I'm so grateful that they like asked us to open for them. Such a huge compliment.
Definitely. Yeah. What would you say are like some of your long-term goals for the band? Like, do you plan to like tour or, release an LP?
Yeah, I would love to. I was just talking to Katie about this the other day. So we played a lot our first year, a lot of local shows, and then I think we went to Lansing was like the first out of town show we played. That was like last October. And then like we did our Halloween set last year. And then we also played a lot locally this year too. I think we had just one out of town show in Grand Rapids. So yeah, definitely want to tour, like do kind I think our next year we want to focus on playing more out of town, like around like the Midwest. Like definitely want to hit Detroit, definitely want to do like Indiana date, maybe Ohio, Illinois. Um, so yeah, definitely want to do like maybe like a little Midwest tour, but I think I want to write more, like I want to write more new stuff so that we have like something to tour. And like, yeah, I really do want to write an album. I don't know. It just seems like there's not enough time. I'm like, ah, I want to play all these shows, but it's like, well, if you're playing a lot of shows, that means you're not, like you need time to focus on writing new stuff. And it's just like, yeah, I've kind of been playing the same stuff now for, a little over a year. So I think that's kind of the trade-off. It's like if you want a tour, then you have to like take time off from playing to focus on writing and recording and then having something out that you can tour and like promote. So it's just hard to say no to shows though. Like I just get so flattered every time anyone asks us to play a show. I never want to say no, but I think I will have to be a little bit more selective next year so that I can focus on getting new material, maybe an LP, maybe if not a full LP, at least an EP, solid, like maybe like 6 song EP, and have it like recorded professionally. And so yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at. Maybe do a music. We want to do a music video. Maybe do a few music videos, um, to get that up on the web because I think we've just got like our Instagram, our Facebook, and the Bandcamp. So it'd be nice to have a little bit of a YouTube presence as well. Get some videos made for some songs. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot I want to do. It's just hard to, um, like I said, it's hard to step away from playing shows because it is so fun, but it's like you kind of have to if you want to have like a complete finished product. I mean, I don't think it's impossible, but I think it is, for me anyway, it's hard to like find time to write a lot because it takes me a long time to finish songs. I'm not a quick songwriter by any means. I hope to get better at that. And I don't know, maybe I do need to work on having some kind of structure to do that. But like I said, it's just so whenever I try to have that structure, it just like something blocks me and I just have to like have that random flow state to like have anything, which I guess makes it hard to have any kind of like um finished comprehensive thing. But anyway, so yeah, I have a lot of goals. It'll just have to take some discipline, I guess, which is hard for creatives, especially musicians, I think.
Rock on. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Um, I don't know. I guess check us out on Instagram. We're Sierra Mift. And then on Bandcamp, we're sierramif.bandcamp.com. We have a demo. We're in the process of recording a new song. It's almost done. So stay tuned it'll be uploaded to Bandcamp once it's ready. It's called Ghost World. It's a banger. Yeah. We also have a Facebook, but I'm very bad at updating the Facebook. So follow our Instagram if you're gonna follow any of our social media. I'm much more active on there than on Facebook. And yeah, stay tuned. We're gonna have hopefully a lot of new music in the next upcoming year, and maybe we'll be coming to a city near you.